So the fast has very much stirred up the conversation about immigration reform, but what can we actually expect from lawmakers? Those are the folks that can actually get something done. House Speaker John Boehner signaled there could be some movement on the issue last week by hiring high-profile immigration advisor Rebecca Talent, who formerly worked for John McCain. But with the 2014 midterm elections in sight, it's questionable whether or not Congress will get much of anything done. This is the do-nothing Congress, right? Let alone getting something done on this very difficult issue of immigration reform. Here now to discuss what is next for immigration reform is Mario Lopez. He is president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund, and we also have Tamar, Jacoby, president and CEO of Immigration Works USA. Thank you both for being here. I want to start with you, Mario. You, I'm sure, got to see Eliseo there and may have read some pieces about him in our paper. What's your reaction to his, I mean, in one part, it's political theater in some ways, but what's your sense of how this is landing?
Well, I think that bringing immigration reform to keeping it in the limelight, I think, is very important. And I think that the speaker himself managed to do that with the hire of Rebecca Talent that you mentioned. Immigration is a very complex issue, and no one knows the ins and outs of and all the legalities and all the little details better than she does. Few people are in that are as high a profile as she has on this issue. So I think that that's very important as well, and I think that that signals that there may be some way to achieve this in 2014.
She may in some ways be the most important person in this debate. I'm going to turn to you on this, Tamar, and put up Rebecca's words here. She wrote an op-ed for the Christian Science Monitor last month, November 6, 2013. Here's what she had to say. If Republicans in the House are going to pass immigration reform, they will need to be sold on the policy and its merits, not on the politics of reform. Unfortunately, many advocates, such as yourself, are finding themselves ill-equipped to make the case to Republicans. What do you make of what she says?
Well, Becky's great, and she's going to be a very important figure in this debate. But I actually think that Republicans in the House, the Republican conference in the House, the people at the top, but also the people, the rank and file, your ordinary member from Peoria, most of them do understand that we need to get to immigration reform. For the sake of the country, that's about the merits of the problem. For the sake of the party, that's about the politics. And I think that there's a tremendous ferment going on up there, where it's true. 2 years ago, most Republican congressmen were saying, "Keep this away from me."
Right.
Now they're realizing,
and even some unions, to be fair.
Now they're fair enough. Now they're Democrats and unions as well. But now the Republican conference, they're really realizing it needs to get done. You literally, when you meet them, I can see the gears turning of people who were against it as recently as a year ago and are now thinking, "What can I be for?
Right.
And we've got to do this. We've got to solve it. How can I?" I think these people broke the law, but I also realize that they're not leaving the country.
Right, you can't send
and so what answer can I be for? And so I think there is a ripening, and I think conventional wisdom is that we can't do it in an election year. But I don't think that's really true. I mean, all the big past immigration reforms were all done in election years. So there's funny chemistry, different times. I think it's quite possible that they could get it done this year.
So Mario Boehner, obviously a point person here. Here is what he had to say in terms of immigration reform. He has been optimistic about this for a while. Here's what he had to say.
I've been committed to it. I'm still committed to it. I've also made clear that dealing with a 1,300-page bill that no one's read is a non-starter for us. We're going to try to do this in a common-sense, step-by-step approach. I've learned a long time ago from this podium not to make a lot of predictions.
Well, Tamar, you seem to want to make predictions. Mario, I'm going to go to you on this. What do Republicans actually want? They don't want this huge bill out of the Senate. They've passed about 5 piecemeal bills out of the committee. What's your sense?
Well, I mean, one thing, just quick point of information. I think that the Senate bill was online, and it had been for a while, so it was open for anyone to read. I think, I'm not sure if Speaker Boehner got that memo, but that was
Right.
but that was the case.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is important. Transparency is an important principle here, and we have to go through. I fully support the idea of going through the committee process, getting input from people, from experts, from the American people, and to sort of do this in the right way, because it is complex and it has to be done in a way that makes sense for, I think, for everyone. And I think that Republicans sort of understand that and are focusing on that now, which is a good thing.
And Obama himself, Tamar, seems to want the piecemeal approach now. Here is what he had to say, and this was last month, right around Thanksgiving.
Right now, it's up to Republicans in the House to decide if we can move forward as a country on this bill. If they don't want to see it happen, they've got to explain why. The good news is, just this past week, Speaker Boehner said that he is hopeful we can make progress on immigration reform. And that is good news. I believe the Speaker is sincere. I think he genuinely wants to get it done. And that's something we should be thankful for this week. And I think there are a number of other House Republicans who also want to get this done. Some of them are hesitant to do it in one big bill like the Senate did. That's okay. They can. It's Thanksgiving. Yeah, we can carve that bird into multiple pieces.
So he talks about carving that bird. Let's look first at what the Senate bill, and this was passed in June, of course, it does a couple of things that Democrats very much wanted to see happen. There's a pathway to citizenship. Some people call that amnesty for 11.7 million undocumented immigrants. There's a border control. Patrol agents would double within the next decade. There's also an increase in high skill and low skill worker visas. This was a bill that got bipartisan support, and also the unlikely support, if you look at the history of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and unions. What do Democrats want? Are they afraid of this piecemeal approach?
Yeah, I think the distinction between comprehensive and piecemeal is oversold and overemphasized. It's a little bit like the president said. You can think of your Thanksgiving meal as 4 different courses and 8 different dishes, or you can think of it as the Thanksgiving meal.
Right.
It's not, it's what the House is thinking about is passing a number of bills that would address most of the issues, if not all the issues that are in the Senate bill, and then eventually, obviously, there's got to be some kind of, it's not going to be a conference, as Speaker Boehner pointed out, but some kind of reconciliation, meeting of the minds between the two. But I think the fact comprehensive piecemeal, it doesn't really matter. You know, you're taking 3 steps to get there, or are you walking there? It's the same thing.
The important thing, Nia, I think that it is building on Tamar's point, is that how these pieces complement each other. Because border security is important, and Republicans talk about border security a lot, and that's completely justified. But reforming the legal system, allowing folks to have a future flow of immigration and legal workers that come here, I think is very important, because that helps strengthen border security. Because now the resources, the men and women that we have protecting our country on the border can focus on the real bad guys, who are people who might be bringing in weapons or bombs or drugs or God knows what, right, coming across the border. And I think that allowing them to focus more on those folks, if there are legal avenues for people to take advantage of, I think that is helpful for everyone.
That's a really important point. I mean, there are very, very few of the people who are here working without papers want to be here without papers. They don't get anything for being here without papers. All they get is fear and danger and an unstable life.
Yeah.
If there was a way for them to come and work legally, 99.999% of them would take it, and 99.999% of the employers would take it too. There's some bad guy employers who want it. Well, there's some bad guy employers out there who want to pay people, $3 an hour and whatever. But most employers, they have their business at stake. If it's their family savings in their mom and pop business or their brand name for their big national chain, they don't want it to be at risk. So most employers and most workers would rather be legal. The problem is we just don't have a legal system.
Is it your sense, Mario, that there's enough urgency around this? I want to look at, we're going to throw a graphic up on screen here. The question being, and this was Public Religion Research Institute, should immigration policy be a priority for President Obama? 41% said yes in the next couple of years. 14% said no, not at all. No, not at all. Only 42% said yes immediately. So you do have those folks who are sort of saying, oh yeah, sure, get to it, or don't get to it at all. I mean, is there enough urgency around this issue, whether it's an economic issue, a political issue, a moral issue, a religious issue? What's your sense?
I think there is,
And collectively, nationally, you think there is?
Well, I think that people are justifiably frustrated with the current system, the ongoing lawlessness, and all the things that entails. And we see the headlines, and people get fired up about this across the country, and that's okay. I mean, everyone is frustrated with this because we do not have a legal system that works and that meets our economic needs and the needs of the country as a whole. And so that creates a lot of frustration, creates a lot of confusion. And so dealing with that, I think, is an important thing. And I think that Republicans understand that, that the clock is ticking.
And look who's in that 41%. So you have union and left of center people like Eliseo Medina. You have business people like Mark Zuckerberg and the head of Caterpillar
and
corporations.
Evangelical pastors,
and you have evangelical
right?
pastors, and you have Latino voters. You have who are across the spectrum. You have it's a very important, powerful, potent mix.
And it's one that we hadn't seen before.
That's exactly
I mean, there are new people at the table pressing for this. Tamar, you obviously think this is going to happen before 2014.
I hope it's going to happen.
That's your prediction.
In
2014. What's your prediction, Mario? Put some skin in this game.
I think we will see some sort of legislative effort from the House, whether or not it ends up on something that gets to the president's desk that he signs is a different story.
That's a less than bold prediction. That's fine. That'll do it for us today. Thanks again to my guests for joining me. Now for our Twitter question of the day. Tell us what you think. Will Congress actually pass comprehensive immigration reform? Tweet us at Background and follow me at Nia Wapo. Don't forget to use that hashtag #PostBack, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.